and welcome to Ancient Secrets. Like a podcast, it's a Zoomcast where you get the opportunity to meet God's actual past. I'm Rabbi Flip of Congregation Micah in Nashville, Tennessee, here to introduce you to the theological heroes of our past so that we might glean some practical wisdom for our present situation. After each interview, our guests will reveal their true identities, a bit about their own theology and what makes them tick, as well as the missions of the organizations they dedicate their lives to serving. So put on your imagination caps, get ready for some practical advice for the pandemic from a man known in Judaism as a mystic, a philosopher, and a saint, a preeminent Talmudic scholar of the 20th century, a Lurianic Kabbalist, a prophet of religious Zionism, and the chief rabbi of the state of Rabbi, the first one of Israel, the first one. We have with us on this program Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook.
Stop, 'cause I really love you. Stop, 'cause I really love you. Look in my heart and let love keep us together.
Rav Kook, you are my second favorite rabbi of all time. I'm honored and humbled to spend even just a little bit of time with you.
Rabbi Flip, thank you for having me. However, second favorite rabbi?
I'm not sure you're familiar with Rabbi Lori Rice, but even my own parents think I married up.
Yes. I've met her. I get it. She's quite a powerful woman. We spent time together on an interfaith trip to the Holy Land right before all this craziness with the pandemic really started.
Really? An interfaith mission? One of the reasons I've always loved you and your work so much is how tolerant of all people that you are.
Love for all creatures is the desire of the most honorable. Light and sanctity never depart from the godly image instilled into all of us. Every nation and individual is graced with intrinsic worth.
That sounds like a John Lennon song. But seriously, does it ever make you anxious seeing the secularization of Judaism in Israel, the abandonment of religion in the United States, the loss of Jewish ritual and observance, the high rates of intermarriage?
Rather than scorn the irreligious, I've always sought to integrate them, bring them closer. My father was a student of the Voloshin Yeshiva, the center of Mitnei Gadim, but my maternal grandmother was Hasidic, so I know a thing or two about intermarriage. I do believe that love is a powerful force, and perhaps the most powerful force known to us.
Love. Your love of Torah, of God, of Israel, of all people and beings, it's just infectious.
The Jewish people in its totality is the bearer of great promise among all the streams of Judaism. On the contrary, the Judaism which has narrowed itself to the issues of treif and kosher, ritually forbidden versus permitted food, cannot serve as Judaism's only foundation. Reform, progressive Judaism, just like the kibbutz movement, represents the eternal creative spirit of the Jewish people.
Rav Kook, you've never shied away from gently offering constructive criticism to your peers, religious or secular, but you remain committed to outreach and cooperation between different groups and types of Jews.
Jewish unity should not be misinterpreted as any inherent endorsement of all ideas, but joint projects. Joint projects I can certainly appreciate. All Jews must work together in serving God and in bringing about the ultimate redemption.
What can you teach us about evil, whether human or divine?
There are those with hearts of stone, and there are stones with human hearts. Part of the trouble is that individualism teaches us to see each other as competitors and even as enemies, instead of what we truly are, fellow travelers on the common adventure we call life. We are meant to collaborate and therefore lighten our respective burdens.
And this pandemic, what do you make of it?
Listen, I was born in a small town in Latvia back in 1865.
You look terrific.
Thank you. Thinking about the old country is a good reminder for me that the Jewish people have survived more difficult challenges than this virus. Back when I was a child, social distancing was thrust upon us. Many of our people ended up in ghettos throughout history. It was partly because of the pogroms that I made Aliyah to the Holy Land back in 1904. That and the fact that it was a fulfillment of a dream. It was in Israel that I learned that whoever harms another, even in love, not only spreads dissent among people, but also injures religious life. Thus, the truly religious are unable not to love. And the best way to love our neighbors during this coronavirus is to stay home, because neighbor is not just a geographic term, it's also a moral concept.
Stay at home. Yes, it's good, but not new advice. Do you have any other wisdom you might shed on us about what's happening and how to cope with it?
Only that when the people return to life, we will head the wealth of life's secrets.
That's real fortune cookie kind of stuff there, Rabbi.
Look, we must focus all of our endeavors toward disclosing the light of general harmony. The pure righteous do not complain of the dark, but increase the light. They do not complain of evil, but increase justice. They do not complain of heresy, but increase faith. They do not complain of ignorance, but increase wisdom.
No complaining. Powerful notions. Do something about it. One of the reasons I've always respected you is that you recognize change as a constant. The world we live in is radically different than the world in which our ancestors lived in which you lived in. And now we also live in a digital world.
The secret is, if we want to infuse our lives with the sacred Jewish tradition, we must remain firmly rooted in the present moment. The old can be made new and the new made holy.
Spoken like a Reformed Jew. I appreciate that you honor all Jews with such respect.
My soul aspires for the mysteries, the hidden secrets of the universe. It cannot be content with much knowledge that probes the trivialities of life and its divisions.
Okay then. I know the man behind the great Rabbi Kook knows that sometimes those trivialities are important, and it's almost time to reveal the leader behind this great rabbi. Before we meet my colleague and great friend, a short word from our sponsor.
Ancient Secrets is brought to you by Congregation Micah, a vibrant synagogue serving all of Middle Tennessee, offering creative and diverse ways to celebrate Jewish life using the rich beliefs and practices of progressive Judaism as its foundation.
Welcome back. It's time to introduce you to Eric Stillman, Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Eric has an extensive experience in the world of Jewish philanthropy, and specifically federation, having served in that role in Broward County, Florida, in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, when his community was scattered from Houston to Nashville and beyond. He's participated in numerous missions to Israel, to the former Soviet Union, speaks at conferences and symposiums. Plus, Eric recently got engaged. Mazel tov. Eric, thank you for playing along with us. We want to know a little bit more about what it is that makes you tick, why you do what you do. So my first question is always, what makes you get out of bed in the morning, and what seems to keep you up at night?
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Flip. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I tell you that love of the Jewish people and care and concern for our Jewish people is what gets me up in the morning. It's what keeps me up at night. It drives me all day long. This is a 24/6. It's more than an occupation. It's a passion and a belief. And I truly feel that caring for one another and building and strengthening our Jewish community is the essence of what I do and why I'm here on this planet.
I love that, 24/6. And you're the perfect person, I think, to have played Rabbi Kook, because he too had such a love and embrace of all people, especially Jewish people. And he saw that to some sort of fruition in the land of Israel. What scares you? What worries you? It doesn't just have to be about the pandemic. Are there things that sort of keep you up at night?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now that we're facing in this pandemic is the uncertainty of not knowing. How long will it last? Are we going to be going for a long time ahead? Are we going to be able to go back to our normal lives soon? And it's very hard to judge that. And living with uncertainty is difficult for most people. I know you, Rabbi Flip, have talked about leaning into that uncertainty and to be able to, in a sense, embrace it. And I think that that is the challenge before us. For some of us who are fortunate, we have a roof over our heads, we have food to eat, we have clothes on our back, we have the luxury of being able to wait this out and hopefully to remain steady and strong in our approach. There are others who don't have those necessities of life, and they're in a much worse position. They're the ones who will struggle and who will be really torn asunder by this coronavirus. And importantly, it's the economic impact of what the coronavirus is doing to our country, to our society, to our world, which poses the greatest threat to those individuals.
Again, very Rabbi Cookian that you're caring and worrying about the most vulnerable in our society. It's a very Jewish message. We do have to care about that. I know one of the things that we share is a passion for the land of Israel. And we have just traveled together there with on an interfaith mission. It was delightful to spend time with you and especially to be there. I think both get nourished from that experience. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about Israel. Again, it can be about the pandemic. It doesn't have to be. Just your thoughts.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Going to Israel, it is a rejuvenation experience for me every single time. I love to go, to be with the people, to be in the land. And at the same time, yes, we certainly are aware that the pandemic is worldwide and it affects Israel just as it affects us. And this is actually the very first time, at least certainly in my lifetime, where there's been a crisis that is occurring that is affecting both the Jewish community here in the United States and all of our country and Israel at the same time in much the same ways. And so there's a lot that we can learn from each other. There's a lot of strength that we can draw from each other. And in my role with the Jewish Federation in Nashville and Middle Tennessee, I have the opportunity to be in regular contact with our partners in Israel and to hear from them. What are their experiences? What lessons can they teach us? And conversely, what are our experiences and how can we share what we're doing to relate to them and how they can learn from that? And so we do have this wonderful give and take, this back and forth, this partnership. And it's very much in keeping with the role for the Federation to build community. And that's building it here in Nashville, Middle Tennessee. And it's also building it worldwide with our Jewish brothers and sisters throughout the entire globe.
Yeah, let's talk about Federation a little bit. I have a story to share, but first I think one of the things I love the Federation does in its missions and its advocacy for Israel is it exposes to the community, both in the Jewish community and outside, the real complexity and depth of an actual place, which is to say a place where they also go to the movies and they dance and they read and there's culture. And so as opposed to always thinking conflict, I think Federation, like Congregation Micah, does a good job of showing the complexity by taking people there and exposing them to it. The story I tell sometimes is when I was young and going to Israel for the first time, I was looking for some scholarship money, and Federation had a small stipend to help me get there. So I applied for that stipend and I got it. Actually did a program you may have heard of called Volunteers for Israel, where I worked in the military. They helped pay for my ticket to get over there. And it was very menial work, but it was an interesting experience. And it got me to Israel for the first time and was able to stay there for several months, did some study and some travel. And I was telling someone this story and they said, "Where did you get the money to go?" And I said, "Well, there was this organization called the Jewish Federation." And they were like, "Is that like from Star Trek?" I mean, they just didn't understand what federation was. And so I think if you just could take us, a couple minutes and walk us through what it is you do and why, and anything else you want to tell us about federation and its good work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And I think you're right. There are a lot of folk who may not be familiar with Jewish Federation if they didn't grow up with it, if they've never had any reason to have any connection or contact to it. It may be something that is not familiar to them. In its most basic form, the Federation really is an extension of the Jewish community trying to create in an organized way some basis on which to have all of our members of the community, all of the Jewish people and the families and people who are within those Jewish households, whether they themselves are Jewish or not, who can come together and have some kind of a interconnection. And that goes beyond an individual congregation. It goes beyond an individual agency or school. It's a chance to really have a knit together sort of relationship within the Jewish community. And the Federation is really the creation of a long-standing effort to bring together the community. And then well before either I was born or you were born, there was a need to have this sort of connection because we all live very independent lives. We all are voluntary people where we can choose to be involved or not be involved. And so the Federation is a reflection of how people can voluntarily participate in their Jewish community. They can help support their Jewish community. They can receive support from their Jewish community. And in this particular case here in Nashville, we also have the benefit of a long-standing history of multiple generations of families who've been here, who've had Jewish connections to Nashville and Middle Tennessee going back decades, in some cases well over 100 years. And that is truly remarkable. And the relationship between our Jewish community here and the Jewish community in Israel and in other places around the world also knits us together because in that sense, we are very much one Jewish people with multiple presences around the world, each expressing ourselves in our own way, in our own location. And that is, I think, part of the beauty of what Federation tries to represent.
Yes, very, very helpful. Thank you. I like, again, with Rabbi Kook, that Federation does a nice job of laying out infrastructure for the Jewish community so that there's abilities to tap into congregations, of course, but as a uniting force, it helps the Jewish community work together and pull our resources, I would say, to sort of accomplish all of our missions. And I thank you for doing the work that you do. Tell us, I don't know, a little bit more about how you're making it through the coronavirus. Things you are doing either personally or professionally.
I'm very fortunate, as you mentioned in my introduction, that I recently got engaged, and thank you very much. She and I decided, even though she was not from Nashville, that she would move to Nashville so that we could shelter in place together. And so that has really been a wonderful experience. And as soon as Davidson County is willing to issue marriage licenses, then we can actually get married. So there are sacrifices that each of us has to make.
It sounds like she's also trapped in Nashville, not really having explored a lot of Nashville necessarily.
That's true. There's lots and lots of Nashville still to explore, and we look forward to being able to go out and to do that exploration together. So that's helping me tremendously to get through this, and it's also the technology, just as we're using right now through Zoom and Facebook Live and through YouTube and all the other ways in which we're able to get technology to work for us. And so we're able to be in touch with each other in this virtual way. And while it's not the same as sitting down across a table and having a meal or a cup of coffee or being able to be in proximity to each other, we are fortunate that there is at least the ability technologically to have this virtual connection. And I think that it would be much harder for us to manage if we did not have this ability during this time of coronavirus to be able to extend beyond our own home virtually to experience what it's like to be in contact with other people.
I'm curious, just a few more questions. Like, do you feel that your role in New Orleans with Katrina has provided any other insights of what's going on now? Does it give you an ability to, I don't know, help or just personally or professionally? Does that shed any insight on what everybody's going through now?
Well, I think in some ways, yes, it does, because that was the greatest devastation experience of a modern American city. Yet the difference in that sense was it was localized to one geographic area, and the rest of the Jewish world was able to pour in resources and bring people to help and to make it a shared experience. And here, in the case of coronavirus, we're all going through pretty much the same experience wherever we are. And so while we try and help collectively, ultimately our greatest strength will come from those of us who are right here, those of us in our local area. And so there are some lessons that have been learned and are applicable from Hurricane Katrina to now, and there are others which don't exactly apply. And I think that that's important to know what's relevant, and in other cases, what's not.
Sure. Maybe a final question or two. Do you have any way that Jewish people can be of assistance? Do you have any suggestions of where, like, if there's things Congregation Micah can do because of the coronavirus specifically, or just in general in partnership with Federation?
Absolutely. So one of the best ways the Congregation Micah and members of the congregation can help is to participate in the Coronavirus Emergency Response Fund. The Jewish Federation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee started this fund. We took $25,000 from the Federation's board discretionary fund as seed money to get it started, and we're accepting donations. And the purpose of that is to create a basket of wraparound services for people in our community who have suffered economically from the coronavirus situation, and they may have lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods, and they may be suffering. And this way, we're going to work with our agencies and congregations to provide them with additional resources, whether it be scholarships for early childhood programs, whether it be kosher food boxes, emergency financial assistance, day school scholarships, senior services, and when the time comes, senior transportation. We really want this basket of wraparound services to help lift up the members of our community who are suffering the most. And we want people to feel that there's a place that they can turn for assistance, and if they have the means to do so, a place that they can contribute specifically for this purpose.
Outstanding. We'll do our best to get that information up so that they can be a part of the program. Everyone can have that information. We can direct them to it. This has been terrific, Eric. Do you have anything else you want to tell us?
I just want to say thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a pleasure to be with you.
It's been a treat to have you with us. Absolutely. Congregation Micah, the whole Jewish community, we thank you for your willingness to play rounds and midrash with us and share more about who you are and why it is you do what you do, all while educating us about one of Judaism's greatest figures and one of our important organizations in town. May you go from strength to strength.
Thank you.
I also want to thank all of our viewers out there. We look forward to having you join us next time on Ancient Secrets, Congregation Micah's Zoomcast, where you can meet God's actual cast. Okay, the show's over now. If you'd like to learn more about Jewish Federation, you can Google it.
Zoom, zoom.